What is going on, guys? It's Walker Heckman here, back with another video. I put together a pretty good one for you today. We're gonna go through some of my favorite jigs and lures to use while ice fishing. Now, as many of you may know, there are hundreds of different types of jigs or lures that you can use while ice fishing. You can even use a lot of lures intended for open water fishing for ice fishing. I don't have all of them. I don't use all of them. I haven't used all of them, but I've definitely figured out what works best for me and which ones I like to use in certain situations. Before we hop into this one, I wanted to remind all you guys about my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. We're making the climb to 1,000 subscribers faster than I would have ever imagined, and that's all thanks to you guys. If at any point through this video a question pops in your head, or maybe an idea pops in your head for me about ice fishing jigs, be sure to drop that in the comments below. I'd love to hear some feedback from you. So with that, let's hop right into this video. The first type of jig I'm going to talk about today is something that definitely isn't new, but it's kind of new to me as of recently. I think that it is a fan favorite of ice fishermen, especially people who fish for panfish or trout, and that is a tungsten teardrop jig. These tiny little jigs have caught me more fish this year than I could even imagine. They come in all different shapes and sizes. I mean, they're called a teardrop because they're kind of shaped like a teardrop, but I've got some here that definitely aren't exactly shaped like a teardrop, but they do the same thing. I would say that when I'm fishing for smaller fish, such as a small or finicky perch bite, panfish, or even sometimes stock or trout, these are definitely my go-to jig. They give you a super small presentation, but because of all that weight from the tungsten, they give you a very unique presentation. I've got multiple different colors of these little teardrop jigs. My favorite color just so happens to be gold so far. I've got this kind of flat gold color that's smooth all the way around the jig, and I've also got this slightly smaller, shinier, hammered texture gold. And the thing that I like about gold so much is that in the murky water it seems to have enough color to kind of pop a little bit, but it's also not too flashy in clear water to make fish leery of it. It's kind of my happy medium, I've noticed. I also use white. You can't really go wrong with white in either water clarity. I almost prefer white in murky water. I mean, not super murky water, but definitely clouded water. I have kind of an orange and yellow that I have not used much, mainly because I don't fish that dirty of water. But if I ever do fish some dirty water, I think this is going to be the ticket. And then also kind of on the same lines, I have a fire tiger color, which I haven't used much, but I plan on using in the future on some new bodies of water. Probably my favorite one for trout is this pink and white. Seems to do excellent. Well, it seems to do about as good as the gold one that I like to use. And I think that's just because for some reason trout seem to be attracted to pink. The next type of jig that I use is mainly for bigger fish like bass, pike, walleye, that kind of stuff. But I've also used it as kind of an attractant because it's got a rattle to it. And that is these super tiny, it's basically a lipless crankbait, but they look awesome when you jig them. I also have a rattle trap that's about 5 times this size that I jig for strictly pike. But these things have a nice little rattle to them, and I've definitely been able to call a school of perch over closer to me dropping one of these down the hole. This is in kind of a natural perch color. It's the only one of this size that I have. I got some bigger ones for open water fishing that I've definitely tried, but if I'm just trying to call any fish in, I will drop this down and give it a go. I have another lipless crankbait that I just got in that mystery tackle box that I have not had a chance to try yet, but that is this little guy. It's got a pretty cool color scheme with like a bleeding gill. It's only got one single hook on the back, which is pretty interesting. You could definitely swap it out for a treble hook if you wanted, but I'm actually kind of excited to give this a try. It's got an even more minute rattle to it. I don't know if my mic even picked that up, but if it did, it is very minute, which might work better if it's a finicky bite. And say I got a school of perch maybe 20 yards away that I can see in my camera. This might be better to bring those in. The next style of jig that I use, and I actually use quite often, is the Jigging Wrap style of bait. This here is a Rapala, super small, and again like a natural perch color. This is actually the jig that I accidentally caught that 6-pound northern on at the beginning of the season. I don't know if you can see that, but it bent the crap out of this tiny treble hook, that nice pike did. And the thing I like most about Jigging Wraps is they have a cool action underwater, and they have 3 hooks on them. You got a single hook in the back, single hook in the front, and a dangling treble hook. So basically, a fish can hit this thing in the butt, the head, or from the bottom, and you have a chance to hook up on them. That's probably the main reason that I've dropped this before. I've actually dropped this instead of one of these tiny teardrops, simply because I was having a hookup issue, and with this, with all those extra hooks, it was able to help me out with that issue. I've got multiple different sizes and colors. This is the smallest I have. It's a Rapala. I've got this one, which I believe is a clam, and it's white, but it glows in the dark green. It's slightly larger. I've not caught anything on this yet, mainly because I've preferred this smaller profile Rapala. And last but not least, I have an enormous version of that style of bait. You can see it's got that bleeding gill, kind of a natural, almost shad color to it, with a red paddle in the back. I got this to also jig for some of those bigger fish like pike, walleye, bass. I have not been able to try this out much. I've not caught anything on it yet, but I think it's going to do quite well. Another style of jig that I have used, and it's probably the first one I ever used while ice fishing, is just your standard old lead jig. I mainly use white when I use these, and I have no reason for that. It's just the color I've always used since day one. I use multiple different sizes, and since I started using those tungsten teardrops, I've been veering farther and farther away from these. Not that these don't catch fish, I just prefer the action and the weight off those smaller tungsten jig. Another thing I've done is I've taken like a big 1/2 ounce and hooked like a minnow head or just a piece of meat, big piece of meat on this, jigging mainly for pike. My brother in that first ice fishing video, I don't think it was in the video, but he actually had one of these with a minnow head on it, dead stick, and he hooked into a northern. We didn't get to his rod in time and ended up losing it, but that is another thing I like to do going for pike with a rod, is to take one of these big 1/2 ounce old lead jigs, put a minnow head on there, jig them for northern. Now the next one isn't exactly a jig, it's actually something I use in the summer when fly fishing, and I use this in crystal clear water, usually only crystal clear water. And this is a little pheasant tail, beadhead, nymph, or underwater fly, or beadhead, whatever you want to call it. And this thing works exceptional for trout, and I have not tried it for anything else, but I'm pretty sure perch and probably panfish would annihilate this thing. It has an awesome action, and this is literally what they're eating this time of year, is these little underwater creatures, and this resembles them perfectly. I know there's several other types of like underwater flies that are meant for ice fishing. I have not tried any of those out. I just took a pheasant tail out of my fly box and tried it once for trout, and it did exceptional, and I've kind of been hooked on this little pheasant tail ever since. This is another wild card that I use that I literally don't think I've ever heard of someone else using, and this is probably going to sound absolutely bizarre, but this little rainbow trout panther martin, it is an inline spinner, tiny little rainbow trout inline spinner. I have caught perch and pike on one of these, jigging them through the ice. You literally tie it on to your normal tie off spot, and when you jig this, I mean, definitely tipped with like a grub or maggots or something, and this blade gives a nice twirl every time you jig it. A lot of people have never thought of it, or maybe they have and I just haven't seen it. So it's probably, I mean, I think it's an original idea, but someone else has probably done it. But these things work exceptional under the ice. The next category of jigs that I use is a spoon. Now I've got a few spoons that are strictly kind of made for ice fishing. Then I got a couple that are probably for open water, but I use under the ice. The first one is this big gold with red dots, big nice rooster tail and the treble hook. The only thing I've caught on this is trout, but I'm pretty sure if I would have used it, I could have caught perch, sunfish, bass, everything with this thing. This here is one of those spoons that I'm pretty sure is kind of for open water. Seen a lot of people troll these for trout. It's got kind of a unique shape to it, but it's just kind of like a brass color. This super tiny daredevil, I'm pretty sure is also for open water, but I've definitely caught fish on this through the ice. And it's just, I mean, I bought these for open water fishing, never caught a thing on them, dropped one through the ice one day, caught a perch, and just thought that these things were awesome. And then I'm gonna go ahead and throw this one in the spoon category, even though it probably almost deserves its own category. It's pretty much a spoon, and that is the good old-fashioned Swedish pimple. You can catch anything on a Swedish pimple. Trout, perch, bass. If you got lucky, you could catch some of the bigger stuff like pike and walleye. I mean, everyone that ice fishes has probably used or at least knows of the Swedish pimple. This is one of the best ice fishing jigs around. It's simple and it just works. The last little category of jigs I have, I don't really have a name. I don't really know what they're called. They aren't exactly a spoon, but they're not like any other jig I've seen. I can't remember what brand these are off the top of my head, but these little rattle jigs. This one's gold with a red eye, nice rooster tail and the treble hook. And if you can see back there, there's two beads. And these are supposed to rattle, but I doubt you could even hear that. They don't make much noise. I mean, I can feel a little vibration coming off of it, barely, when I shake it. I was expecting these to be louder when I bought them. I have caught perch on this other one that I have. It's slightly bigger, and it is pink. This thing would probably do good with trout too. I haven't tried it out yet. Same rattle system on the back, same brand. This one doesn't have a rooster tail. This one, I don't know if the mic's picking that up, but this one you can actually hear. So I don't know if it's the size difference or what, but this small gold one with the rooster tail, I can't get to make any noise. Maybe I just got a bad one, but this pink one makes the right amount of noise for me. I have not really used this to kind of lure fish over, which I legitimately think rattling baits do, especially through the ice. Like I said earlier, I definitely prefer these lipless crankbaits. They got a much more clangy rattle on them. But I thought they were cool. I've tried them out a little bit. Definitely not my favorite jig to use, but I've definitely caught fish with them. So with that, that pretty much sums up all of the jigs that I use while ice fishing. I know there's plenty more. There's probably plenty more that I'm gonna try out in the future, but these are the ones that I use and that I've had success with. If you guys didn't see your favorite jig in this list, please drop it in the comments below. I'm always open to learn new things and I'm always open to try new things. Make sure that you guys hit that red subscribe button to be entered in my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. As soon as my channel hits 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away an ugly stick spinning combo. And looking at my analytics, almost 90% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So let's try to change that number. Like I said, if you have any questions about jigs, or if you saw something that I don't have that you think I should have, be sure to leave it down in the comments. Make sure you guys hit that like button. It really helps my video out on YouTube. And with that, keep it wild.